We are roughly halfway through the 2021-22 season, most teams having played over 41 games, with the exception of some, obviously postponements and everything like that. So I thought now would be the perfect time to go over every NHL team, talk about their season so far, and give a mid-season grade for each team. And these grades are all relative to the expectations that I had for the teams heading into the season. So there's a good chance that all of your grades would look a lot different than mine, because I'm sure most of us had different expectations for different teams, so don't take the grades too seriously. This video is less about the grades and more so just about me quickly talking about every single team and how they currently look at the halfway point. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with the Anaheim Ducks. I decided to give them an A-. You'll notice once this video is over, I gave all of the California teams pretty good grades because I didn't really have high expectations for any of those teams heading into the season, especially the Ducks. But as of today, based off of points, they are second place in the Pacific Division. Troy Terry has been a breakout all-star for them this season. Trevor Zegras has lived up to the hype, and he's right there in the Calder Trophy conversation. If the NHL season ended today, I feel like the Ducks front office and Ducks fans would be incredibly happy with how their season went. The Arizona Coyotes, I'm actually only going to give them a C. I know a lot of people's grade is probably like a D or an F, but they had zero expectations coming into the season. This is a team that was supposed to be very bad. That's what they wanted, and well, they are. Now, if they were historically bad and one of the worst teams we've ever seen, which it looked like they were going to be at the start of the season, they didn't win for like their first 13 games or something like that. If that continued, then their grade would be a lot lower, but they're not historically bad, they're just really bad. The Boston Bruins, I'm going to go ahead and give them a B+. I think they're probably pretty happy with where they're at right now, 4th place in the Atlantic Division, but they have one of those wildcard spots locked down. There's virtually zero chance this team misses the playoffs. Their goal from now till the end of the season is just going to be to get into one of those top 3 spots in the Atlantic instead of being a wildcard team. The Buffalo Sabres, I'm going to go ahead and give them a C+. They're not near as bad as I thought they were going to be. There's a lot more bright spots on the team than I thought there was going to be. Rasmus Dahlin's play is coming around from last season. Tage Thompson is looking really good. Alex Tuch has been great ever since he's came into the lineup. Peyton Krebs has shown flashes, so there's a lot of things to look forward to in Buffalo. At the very least, there are reasons to tune in and there are reasons to watch for Sabres fans, and that's pretty much all you can ask for when your team's going through a rebuild. The Calgary Flames, this was a pretty tough one. I decided to give them a B. They are a very streaky team. They've had a lot of ups and downs this season, but right now they are in a pretty good spot. 4th place in the Pacific, 20, 12, and 6, but if you go by points percentage, they would be 2nd in the Pacific. Both Johnny Gaudreau and Matt Tkachuk are playing probably the best hockey of their careers. I'm really interested to see what this team does around the deadline, because I feel like they're only a couple pieces away from being a legit threat to go deep in the playoffs. Moving on now to the Carolina Hurricanes, I'm not going to think too hard about this one. I'm giving them an A+. They are one of the best teams in the league, only 3rd in the Metro right now, but if you go by points percentage, they would be in 1st. Everybody, including myself, was so skeptical about their moves in the offseason, and basically every move that they made has turned out to be pretty good for them. Tony DeAngelo has been producing at a very high rate. Their goaltending has been fantastic, and despite losing Dougie Hamilton in free agency, this team has not skipped a beat. They still look fantastic, so I'm giving them an A+. The Chicago Blackhawks are getting a D from me. They're 16, 20, and 7, 7th place in the Central Division. They sold a lot of futures in the offseason, obviously, to bring in Seth Jones. They also made some other win-now moves, like signing Jake McCabe, bringing in Fleury and Tyler Johnson, and it really just hasn't worked out. This team is not great. They should have been focusing on the future. They should have been heading into maybe even not a full-on rebuild, but at least a retooling, and now they're just in a really weird spot moving forward. Moving on now to the Avalanche, and like the Carolina Hurricanes, I'm giving Colorado an A+. They are the best team in the NHL, and it's pretty crazy that they're already 1st in the entire league standings-wise when you consider the really mediocre start to the season that they had. This team just has a ridiculous amount of weapons. Outside of the likes of Rantanen, McKinnon, and Landeskog, you see Nazem Kadri with 54 points in 38 games. Devin Tays, also someone who doesn't get talked about a lot. He actually leads all defensemen this season in points per game. Also, Cale Makar is probably going to score 30 goals as a defenseman, and that'll be the first time we've seen a defenseman do that since Mike Green when he played for the Capitals. This team is just so good. It's really Stanley Cup or bust for them this season. The Blue Jackets, I decided to give them a C-. I just don't really know what direction this team is heading in. They're not bad, but they're also not the greatest. They're kind of just mediocre. They're competitive on most nights. They're not good enough this season, I don't think, to even make the playoffs, and they're also not bad enough to, put themselves in the best position possible to potentially get a guy like Shane Wright. I feel like it's really time for Columbus to embrace a rebuild over the next couple of seasons, because if they don't, they're probably just going to be stuck being a mediocre team, and that's really never where you want to be. It's honestly like the worst possible position. The Dallas Stars are going to get a B- for me. I didn't have the highest expectations for this team heading into the season. I actually predicted them to miss the playoffs, and they are currently on the outside looking in, but they are right there, and this seems actually a lot more exciting than I thought they were going to be. They quietly have one of the better lines in the entire league with Pavelski, Robertson, and Hintz. Braden Holtby is having a little bit of a career resurgence. He's had a really nice season, so that's another bright spot. The Red Wings, I also gave them a B- like Dallas. They are a lot better than most people thought they were going to be, at least standings wise, but as somebody who watches every single game, I will tell you this is still not a very good team at all. A lot of the glaring problems that have been there over the past couple of seasons are still there, special teams especially, also not enough depth scoring and not having enough defenders that are actually good at defense. Those problems are all still there, but with Larkin playing the way he is, Bertuzzi, and now having the likes of Seider, Raymond, and Nedeljkovic, it's kind of masking a lot of those problems. Those guys that I just mentioned are really carrying the team, and because of it, Detroit probably has a lot more wins than they should. The Edmonton Oilers, I have them at a C- right now, but it's a low C-. I was very close to giving them a D+. They're on the outside looking in right now in the playoff race, and considering how they started the season, where they were, 16-5 or something like that, it's pretty bad. If this team misses the playoffs, then my end of season grade will look a lot different for them. It'll probably be an F, because any season where you have McDavid and Draisaitl in their prime and you fail to make the playoffs is a complete disaster. The Florida Panthers are another team that gets an A+ for me. They are having an incredible season, first place in the Atlantic Division. They are right there in the President's Trophy race, and like I mentioned with Colorado, this team just has so many weapons. Like, you look at Sam Reinhart with 37 points in 40 games, and it seems like nobody's talking about him at all. They have a legit Hart Trophy candidate in Jonathan Huberdeau, a Calder Trophy candidate in Anton Lundell, and Sergei Bobrovsky looks like Sergei Bobrovsky again. This team is clicking on all cylinders, and they're incredibly fun to watch. The Los Angeles Kings, I'm giving them an A-, like I said at the start of the video when talking about the Ducks. Pretty much all of the California teams this season have been a pleasant surprise. The Kings are currently sitting third place in the Pacific. There's a really good chance that this team actually makes the playoffs, which is not something a lot of people thought about them heading into the season. The Minnesota Wild, I'm giving them an A, and I was close to giving them an A+. They're having a fantastic season, 25-10-3, 53 points. Kirill Kaprizov is playing at an MVP level, especially over the past month and a half. And on home ice, it seems like this Minnesota Wild team is almost unbeatable. I'm really hoping they swing for the fences at the trade deadline, go out and try to get a guy like John Klingberg, go out and try to get a guy like Thomas Hertl, because I really feel like this year's Minnesota Wild team is the one that can get over the hump and finally go on a deep playoff run and not just be bounced in, the first or second round. The Montreal Canadiens are one of the two teams that I actually gave an F to. That may be a little harsh because, yes, they have been incredibly unlucky when it comes to injuries and things like that, but going from the Stanley Cup Finals to them being the worst team in the National Hockey League the next season, I mean, come on. This season has just been a complete disaster for Montreal. Nothing has gone right, and it's not like they're bad on purpose either. They made moves in the offseason to try and stay competitive. The Christian Dvorak trade, signing David Savard. They also brought in Mike Hoffman, and like I said, it's just been a complete disaster. And if all that wasn't bad enough, the icing on the cake is the fact that Jesperi Kotkaniemi has more goals than anybody on the Canadiens this season. The Nashville Predators, definitely one of the more surprising teams this season. I'm going to go ahead and give them an A. I didn't predict them to make the playoffs. I feel like a lot of people actually had them finishing last place in the Central. As of today, they're 13 games over 500, occupying the second place spot in the Central Division, and they're playing with a clear identity, and that identity is they're going to come in, they're going to beat the crap out of you, they're going to wear you down, and the guys that you would expect to be their top-end scorers, like Matt Duchene, like Granlund, Johansson, and Yossi, they are all producing at a very high rate this season. It's nice to see Matt Duchene and Johansson especially bouncing back. Tanner Jeannot, undrafted rookie, has really came out of nowhere and is in the Calder Trophy race. It's overall just been a fantastic season for Nashville up until this point. The New Jersey Devils, I'm giving them a C-. I feel like if the season ended today, there wouldn't be too many Devils fans happy with how things went. This season especially was supposed to be the year where they would start to make big strides towards being a playoff team again, especially after signing Dougie Hamilton, Thomas Tatar, trading for Ryan Graves, making all the moves they made in the offseason, and they really just haven't been great. Obviously, Jack Hughes only playing 24 games doesn't help, so hopefully they can have a stronger second half to the season. The New York Islanders, I'm going to give them a C-. Obviously, they got off to a miserable start to the season, but they didn't play a home game. I believe it was, for like their first 13, 15 games or something like that. So tough circumstances to start the season to begin with, but lately they've been better. I believe they're 7-3 in their past 10. They're now one game over 500. They're still going to have to play at a pretty absurd rate for the remainder of the season if they want to get anywhere near a playoff spot, but I do think it's possible. Moving on now to the Rangers, I'm giving them an A-. They're 28-11-4, first place in the Metro Division with 60 points. The only reason that the Rangers aren't an A or an A+ is because Shesterkin is bailing them out a lot. There's a lot of games where they don't really play the greatest hockey, but they're still able to come out with the win. Like, for example, as a team, I don't think they play as well as the Carolina Hurricanes, the Panthers, the Lightning, the Avalanche, and the other top teams in the league, but they have Shesterkin playing like a legit Hart Trophy candidate. He alone has been able to keep them amongst the top teams in the league. The Ottawa Senators, I'm going to go with a C-. I didn't have the highest expectations for this team heading into the season, but I still thought they were going to be a little bit better than they have been. And also, Pierre Dorian said that the rebuild was over, it's time to start winning, so he can't be really happy with where the team's at right now. It seems like the Senators are still at least like 2 seasons away from being legit playoff contenders. There's still a lot of holes on that roster that need to be filled. The Philadelphia Flyers, aside from the Montreal Canadiens, this is the only other team that I gave an F. They are 13-22-8, 34 points, 8th place in the Metro Division, currently riding a franchise worst 13-game losing streak. And the funny part about that is they also had another losing streak earlier in the season that was 10 games. Having 2 10+ game losing streaks in the same season is bad enough, but doing it in the first half of a season, this team sucks. And the worst part about it is they weren't supposed to be bad. As Steve Dangle says, they are bad on accident. The Pittsburgh Penguins definitely get an A+ from me, 27-10-5. They are one of the best teams in the National Hockey League, and considering the fact that Sidney Crosby missed the first couple of weeks of the season, Malkin missed the first couple of months, that is incredibly impressive. I really feel like Mike Sullivan has to be the front runner for the Jack Adams right now. What this team has been able to do, just plugging in guys and having them perform so well, is incredibly impressive. The San Jose Sharks are going to get a B+ for me, probably the worst of the 3 California teams based off of this season, but they're still so much better than I expected them to be, so that's why I'm giving them a B+. And if you're a Sharks fan, aside from the team performance, which alone is probably better than you expected, you can probably be pretty happy with a lot of the individual performances as well, especially Timo Meier, 47 points already, had that 5-goal game, I believe, last week. Moving on now to the Seattle Kraken, I'm giving them a D+, 13-25-4, 8th place in the Pacific Division. Sure, they're an expansion team, and expansion teams aren't usually expected to do much out of the gate, but you look at the roster this team put together, most people, including myself, thought they were going to be right there competing for a playoff spot, especially in a weaker Pacific Division, but that just hasn't been the case. This team really just isn't very good. Their goaltending especially has been bad for the majority of the season, even though Philip Grubauer has looked better over the past week and a half, and it seems like they're already too far out of it to get back into the playoff race at this point, so I would say it hasn't really been a great inaugural season for the Seattle Kraken. Moving on now to the St. Louis Blues, I'm giving them a B+. I feel like the Blues organization and fans have to be pretty happy with the season they're having so far. 13 games over 500. Jordan Kyrou is really breaking out. Vladimir Tarasenko is playing incredibly well, and when you consider everything that went on in the offseason, I feel like most people probably didn't expect that. And also, whether you look at this as a good thing or a bad thing, there's a bit of a goaltending controversy in St. Louis right now because Ville Husso is massively outplaying Jordan Binnington, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out for the rest of the season. The Tampa Bay Lightning, I have to give them an A, 28-10-5, 18 games over 500, and a lot of their top guys have missed a good chunk of time this season. Steven Stamkos is playing the best we've seen him play in a very long time. Victor Hedman, even though he was a Norris finalist last season, he's actually been much better this season. When you're a team like the Tampa Bay Lightning, who have won back-to-back Stanley Cups, the regular season really doesn't matter. They're just waiting to get to the playoffs, and realistically, they could have gotten away with just coasting through this regular season and even getting in as like a 3 seed or a wildcard team, but it seems like they really want to go for that 1 seed in the Atlantic. The Toronto Maple Leafs, I'm going to give them a B+. They're in pretty good shape right now, 16 games over 500, 3rd in the Atlantic, but it has been pretty concerning over the past couple of weeks with how many multi-goal leads that they have blown, 3-0 leads, 3-1 leads. That's a habit that they really have to get out of. Also, it's a little bit worrisome how Jack Campbell has such a workload on his shoulders, and Peter Razek really hasn't been able to give him much relief at all this season. Aside from those two things though, the blown leads and Campbell's workload, I would say overall it's been a real good season for Toronto, especially when you consider how they started the season, they were pretty cold out of the gate. The Vancouver Canucks, I really struggled with this one because it's really been a tale of two seasons. I look at this Bruce Boudreau tenure as like a whole other season for the Canucks than their first part of the season under Travis Green. I settled on a C- because even though they have been so much better under Bruce Boudreau, they're probably still not happy with where they're at right now in terms of the standings. They're still under 500, have a long way to go. I just really don't see them getting back into the playoffs at this point. The Vegas Golden Knights are going to get a B from me. They are first place in the Pacific Division, but they're not having like some incredible season. The Pacific is just not really the greatest division. Obviously, Vegas has had their better players miss a lot of time this season. Max Pacioretty, Mark Stone, William Karlsson as well, and I would probably be a little bit concerned if I was a Vegas fan about the goaltending situation because Robin Leonard really has not had the greatest season. Laurent Brossoit has a sub 900 save percentage right now as well. I wonder if this is a team that's going to look to maybe get some goaltending insurance at the deadline, but obviously they don't really have a lot of cap space to work with. The Washington Capitals, I'm going to give them a B-. They're fourth place in the Metro right now. The teams behind them, or at least that were behind them for the most part this season, have really been on a heater, and the Capitals have kind of been sliding a little bit, been a little bit inconsistent. There's really no chance they miss the playoffs, though. I mean, the playoff race in the Eastern Conference is basically all done. It's just a matter of where teams finish in terms of the seeding at this point. And now to finish out the video with the final team, the Winnipeg Jets, I'm giving them a C-. I can't imagine they're incredibly happy with where they're at right now. Just 2 games over 500, 6th place in the Central Division. The Jets are 5 points behind the Flames right now for that last wildcard spot, and Calgary also has a game in hand. So the Winnipeg Jets definitely have their work cut out for them if they want to be serious about making the playoffs. They have to start going on a run here soon, stringing some wins together. So that is going to wrap up today's video, giving every NHL team a mid-season grade and just overall giving my thoughts on each team and how they fared so far this season. Like I said at the start, don't take these grades too serious. I'm sure they're going to look a lot different than yours because a lot of us had different expectations for different teams. If you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave it a like. A lot of time and effort went into this one, so your like would be greatly appreciated. And if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll talk to you all soon.